Hi. My name is Jennifer Jean Henderson. You know me as JJ, and I'm transformed. Waited a long time to say that. I knew this was going to happen. Anyways, so when I was little, my father was a member of the RLDS Church and an elder. And a very, forgive me for saying so, an awkward man. He was shy, had a good number of friends, but I wouldn't say was an extrovert. But every so often he got to preach. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. And he would hide in the bedroom. Oh, anyway, great. We might actually have a show today. Awesome. And he would hide in the bedroom, and you could hear the rumbling of his voice through the walls, practicing what he was going to say that Sunday. And I remember sitting in the pews with my mom, who desperately was trying to keep me quiet so that he would not get nervous, and listening to him. And his voice would change. His demeanor would change. And he would have an entire congregation wrapped for the full 15 or 20 minutes that he was speaking. And I remember admiring him so much during the time. And I imagined myself up there. And it never happened until today. So thank you very much for this opportunity to experience what a little girl wanted to do for the last 40 years. Thank you. Here we go. So, everybody can hear me? Okay, so I'm actually the director of technology for our company. Believe it or not. And I normally speak in front of groups of anywhere from, are we good? Yeah, we're good. Anywhere from, a few executives trying to decide whether they're going to spend a few $1 million with their company to large groups of 300, 400, 500 people. That's easy compared to today, because this is a little personal. So what I'm going to try to go through here is a lot of material. I made the great mistake of agreeing to do this when Bill asked me to about 6 months ago, so I've been saving stuff for 6 months. And because of that, I'm trying to draw a thread through this. Now, you'll have to understand that this month is considered to be a month to recognize transgender people. And on top of which, coming up is what's called the Day of Remembrance, which will be this Thursday. Day of Remembrance is to remember all the trans men and women who have been murdered over the last year. And unfortunately, that's a rather large number, and we've been doing it for quite a while now. So, I'm going to start with a little bit of vocabulary. This is a very small group of people, and to discuss something as intricate as gender is something that not a lot of people do. It's part of us. It's part of who we are. And for most people, it's like the sky is blue and the grass is green. Sex. Sex is the biological and physical characteristics that define a man and a woman. For most people, that is the same as their gender, but it's not. Gender is really a socially constructed set of roles, behaviors, activities, attributes. We know that there is a difference between men and women, but it's not due to our genitals. It's not due to our chromosomes. It's due to how we treat each other, our roles in the world. Gender identity is then your own identity as to who you are. Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you something different? Are you somewhere in between? All these are possibilities. Sexual orientation is different from gender. Two men can love each other. Two women can love each other. Men and women love each other. But it doesn't matter what their genders are. All that matters is that they love each other. Now, transgender is an umbrella term for people who their expression of their gender does not match what was assigned at birth. And that's a phrase you'll hear a lot, assigned at birth. When the baby's born, it's actually pretty funny. The baby's born, there's two questions you ask. Does it have all its fingers and all its toes? And is it a boy or a girl? You are assigned your gender from the second you're now seen on a sonogram. It used to be when you popped out. Now it's on a sonogram. And you can, so most people are what are called cisgender. And we have two different roles there. We have cisgender and transgender. Cisgender means your assignment of your gender is the same as what you feel inside, is the same as what your brain tells you you are. Most of the people here are cisgender. And I say most because we're going to talk about this. You don't know a transgender person simply by looking at them. And being transgender does not mean going through transition. It means that your innate gender inside of your body does not match what you were given at birth. So a cis woman is a woman who is assigned female at birth. A trans woman is a woman who is assigned male at birth. And the same thing with men. I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot because I haven't had a lot of experience with it. There are actually people who have multiple genders that they go back and forth. And I think we already heard somebody who spoke about that very eloquently a year ago, roughly a year ago. They're trigender, they're bigendered, they're agendered. They don't even feel like they have a gender. They're just human. And then there's genderqueer, which is something relatively new with the younger generation, where they're playing with their genders. They're male, but they love to express their female side, but they don't feel female, but it's an expression of being a human and being alive. Transition. Transition is a process by which somebody who is transgendered tries to become comfortable with their gender. This can be a lot of different things. This can include surgeries. This can include hormonal therapy. This can just simply include living the way that you need to live. Transsexual is a person who has physically transitioned in that way. I am a transsexual. You will often see in the literature M2F and F2M, and that's just shorthand for saying somebody has transitioned from what used to be regarded as a male to a female, or regarded as a female to now a male. I will say that in general, they always were female and they always were male, but now they are regarded by society as to what they're supposed to be. Passing is when a trans person is read as cisgendered. They are the lucky. They can walk down the streets. Stealth is a person who finally transitions to the point where they are able to live a life as the gender they were meant to be and have decided not to tell everybody that they are transgendered. And then they're just simply who they are. And it becomes a non-issue. Misconceptions. So, as with any small group, especially one that's had a lot of press, there's a lot of stories out there, things that people think, things that are going on. And I wanted to go through roughly a top 10 list here of misconceptions. The first one is that transgender people are confused. No, we're not. Sorry. We know exactly who we are. And we struggle with the ability to balance that against what society expects from us. And we struggle with how we can make our lives happier, but we're not confused as to who we are. You know who you are. You really do. You may need a little therapy to work your way through it when you have some mental blocks. I've paid my dues. But really, they're not confused. Myth number 2, transgender people are mentally disturbed. Not all. So, being transgender is regarded not to be a mental disorder, thank God. What it is regarded to be is simply, for lack of a better term, a birth defect. You are what you are when you were born. Although I will say quite a few people who are transgender do have quite a few mental issues. You have to understand that the pressure of living in this manner is something that causes an extreme amount of stress. We see things similar to being in the military: PTSD, depression, suicide. It's very, very common. Myth number 3, transgender people are just extra gay. I want a boyfriend. I think in my head, this is the twisted logic, by the way, that I would become more attractive to my boyfriend if I changed my gender. We are not extra gay. Sorry. That would make it a hell of a lot easier. And actually, it's a funny joke. I do have to, this is one anecdote, though, and I have to apologize. So I came out to my father 3 years ago. And when I did, he was very concerned. And when he was very concerned, because he was concerned for my safety, which I was very happy about. But what he looked at me, he looks at me, and he looks at me, and he goes, "So you say you're transgender. Okay. Have you considered being gay?" I said, "No, Dad. Actually, I did try that for a while, but no, it's not the same thing. And I appreciate your concern." Number 4, transgender people hate their bodies. No, we don't hate our bodies. We really don't. We wish we were born in different ones, but our bodies are our bodies, and we do tend to go through a lot of rigmarole to have them match up with what we would see as our internal selves. Number 5, transgender people have had surgeries or hormones. All of them. No, we haven't. Health insurance doesn't cover a whole hell of a lot of this. I'm very lucky to be working for a company that as of next year will cover some of it. Not all transgender people want to have surgeries, want to take pills. They simply want to be themselves. And so for every single person, it's a decision that they do for themselves. Myth number 6. You can tell someone is transgendered simply by looking at them. No. I guarantee you have walked past people, you know people that are transgender, and you'd have no idea. Not because they've transitioned and they are now stealth, but maybe it's because they have been transgendered all their lives and have decided not to transition, and therefore are living their lives somewhat in secret, but it's comfortable for them. Number 6, transgender people want to trick you. This is a famous one that you see a lot on television. It's one of my favorite jokes. It's so funny. When some poor schmuck is picking up a date at a bar and takes her to his place, and suddenly he realizes that he has picked up the wrong gendered person who looks like a beautiful supermodel. It is so funny. It really is. And actually that is exactly what we're all trying to do, because it is a funny joke. It's funny to be the butt of those jokes, and to know that you will be rejected. Number 8, transgender people are really just cross-dressers. Nope, once again, sorry. Cross-dressing is quite often something that transgender people do on their journey trying to discover who they are, but there is a significant difference between cross-dressers and transgender people. Cross-dressers are doing it because they find some thrill or they find some positive purpose in wearing the clothing of the opposite gender. Transgender people are doing it because that's who they are. The joke that I love is, at a gender conference, how can you tell the difference between transsexuals and cross-dressers? Transsexuals are wearing jeans. Myth 9, all transgender people perform in drag shows. This is Miss Boyd. She is a transgender person who is a wonderful author who is helping lots and lots of people. She is a professor. This is Miss Coco Peru. She is a drag queen. And in fact, she's one of my favorite drag queens because she's very, very funny. You can see there's a slight difference in the way they dress. But the major difference between them that you might want to consider is that when Coco goes home, this is what Coco looks like. When Miss Boyd goes home, that's what Miss Boyd looks like. Recently, we've had a lot of really good help from Miss Laverne Cox, who's a transgender actress from Orange is the New Black. She's the first transgender person in a drama to be nominated for an Emmy. She is the first, and you'll hear this phrase once again, openly transgender person to be on the cover of Time magazine. This is a big year for us. RuPaul, on the other hand, is a drag queen. RuPaul dresses in an extravagant manner for the purpose of entertaining people, for the purpose of becoming a character. RuPaul's a little bit difficult because RuPaul is actually RuPaul Charles' actual first name. That's unusual. Usually a drag queen will pick some random name that's kind of funny, but RuPaul actually just uses RuPaul's name in as both characters. When RuPaul goes home, this is what RuPaul looks like. Still very flamboyant, but definitely male. And finally, oh, come on. Having one more issue here. I pushed the wrong button. Boop. Me. I am transgender. I am transsexual. When I go home, this is what I look like. Okay? This is Amber Waves, a local drag queen. Now, when Amber goes home, Amber also looks like me. So just as I've said there's a lot of nuances to this, yeah, I also do drag. And I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing it for about 15 years. I'm a member of what's called the Imperial Court here in Cincinnati. The Imperial Court is a group of, it used to be just gay men, and now it's gay men, it's women, it's a lot of gender issues, people, it's a diverse group. And what we do is we get together, we do drag shows. We have drag kings, we have drag queens, we have guys that just wear sparkles, and we do numbers, and we collect a lot of money. And in fact, in the last, we've been doing it for about 22 years. In that time, we've raised over $1 million right here in Cincinnati, all for Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. We have given money to the YMCA breast cancer group. We have given money to Caracal. We have given money for HIV. We have given money to FACE, which is children with AIDS. Every year we pick at least 10 charities to give money to. Last year we were lucky enough to bring in about $110,000. Just showing up at bars, putting on shows, collecting tips, and giving it all to the court. I find it a hell of a lot of fun. Being transgender is a decision. No. Most transgender people, and once again I have to say most, gender is something that it is usually, so when you're growing up, your gender is usually pretty solid by the time you're 2 or 3. Your sexuality, on the other hand, is something that's not really in place until you're around 10 or 11. It's much earlier. Most people report that when that their child is transgender, they know it at a very young age. This is my first drag show. I think I'm a little over 1? Yeah, a little over 1. I found this in my baby album. This kind of confirmed a lot of things for me. But that being said, I will tell you that between then and I think when this picture was taken, I learned very quickly that it wasn't okay. That who I was and what I needed to be was not what was allowed. And it wasn't, I guarantee it wasn't because my mom told me that. It wasn't because my dad told me that. It was because I could see what was going on in the world. I could see, I could watch cartoons, I could watch TV, I could see that you're either one or the other, and that's where you're supposed to be, and you don't cross the line, and when you do, it's dangerous, and or you are a joke. And finally, misconception number 11, a person is transgender due to something their parents did. Nope. Current thinking on it is that transgender is caused by a hormonal imbalance during the first trimester inside the womb. There is actually a little teeny weeny part of your brain that helps you with your gender. Helps, just like you can tell a face, just like you can breathe. There's a little tiny section that tells you what your gender is. They have found that in trans women, that portion looks a hell of a lot more like cis women than it does like men. And it's not due to taking hormones. They've determined that. It's at birth. Oh, number 12. This is a fun one. Transgender people are not real men, or not real women. Yeah, we are. And in fact, a hard part of this is that you would think that feminists in particular would be great supporters of trans women. And I have been saddened to find that that in a great number of people is not the case. There's a famous quote, "All transsexuals rape women's bodies by reducing the real female form to an artifact, appropriating this body for themselves. Transsexuals merely cut off the most obvious means of invading women so that they seem non-invasive." As if changing your gender, and it's not changing your gender, confirming your gender is in some way an insidious way to spy into what it is to be a woman. I don't know if any of you have been to this, but the Michigan Women's Music Festival is a very famous music festival up in Michigan where it is built by women, it is run by women, all the performers are women, and it's considered to be the Woodstock of being women. In 1993, a transgender woman decided to attend and was kicked out. Since then, there has been a great deal of fighting about it. A lot of people say it's women-born women are allowed to come, nobody else. The official committee has said you can come as long as you've gone through complete transition, including genital surgery. And all we really want to do is listen to Sarah McLachlan. So it's a little heartbreaking that people who are trying to celebrate their gender will not allow others to do so. This is where it gets really tough, statistics. I'm going to talk about a lot of statistics here, but this is where we start getting into why it's so important for this group to understand about being transgender. Statistics. It's only about 3.3% of the population, about 700,000 adults, identify themselves as being transgender. Now this is kind of a goofy number because they ask people, are you transgender? And people who are not actively transitioning or whatnot might not answer correctly. So this number could be way above this number. But right now, officially, it's 0.3%. In another survey, they asked people who were transgendered, before you transitioned, how was it? And 71% said they hid their gender, and 57% said they delayed their transition to avoid discrimination. So we really don't know how many there are. School harassment. 75% of transgender or gender nonconforming people report being harassed between kindergarten and age 12. 35% were physically assaulted. 12% experienced sexual violence, including rape. 14% decided to leave school after prolonged harassment because they simply could not stand being there. In the workplace, 74% have been harassed or mistreated on the job. And this is, by the way, when they can get a job. 20% have lost a job, they believe, due to simply being transgender. Right now, 32 states in the United States, in 32 states, it is perfectly legal and supported to fire a person simply for being transgender, including Ohio. There is no recourse. The only thing that we've got lately, which has been in the last 2 years, is the Equal Opportunity Commission has said that that's the same thing as firing somebody because of their sex, and they've been able to win a couple of court cases for that. So there's a little movement there. But right now, there's nothing. 20% were denied a promotion, they believe, because of their status. 37 were not hired after an interview that they believe simply because they were transgender. Economics. 19% of households earn less than $10,000. If you're transgender, you're more than likely to be, 1 in 5 of you are more than likely to be under the $10,000 level. 12% are unemployed compared to 7% when the unemployment level was 7%. Housing discrimination. Should you be able to get a job, keep a job, and actually make enough money to get a house, 8% were evicted simply for being transgender. 19% were denied a home or apartment in the first place. You fill out the form? Sorry, we're full. 18% became homeless due to their gender expression. Almost a full 20%. 1 in 5 people are living on the street simply because their gender is different from what they were assigned at birth. 24 had to find temporary place to stay. 25% had to move back with family or friends. And in general, 23% do own a home, but that's compared with 67% for the general population. Between the economics and the discrimination, it's really hard to own a home. Services. 53% of people who are transgender report being verbally harassed in hotels, restaurants, airports, government agencies. I've experienced this myself. It's not fun. Makes the dining experience a little hard, and you really don't want to tip afterwards. 18% are denied equal treatment by government officials or agencies. Go to the government, and they might not treat you the same as everybody else. 11% were denied equal treatment by judges and courts, in particular in child cases where you're trying to simply see your children after a divorce or a separation. 22% have been harassed by police officers simply for walking down the street. In many jurisdictions, police officers are under the misconception that because you are dressed as a woman and they believe that you are a man, you must be in prostitution and simply can be picked up for that one reason. 49% of transgender people are uncomfortable asking for police assistance. Simply will not call 911 if there's a problem. Healthcare. 17% will refuse medical care due to their gender expression. 5.4% of the transgender population is HIV positive. And that's due to 0.6%, that's as opposed to 0.6% of the general population. It's about twice that of the LGBT community, or excuse me, the LGB community at the height of the HIV crisis. 29% postpone needed medical care due to discrimination. And I need to tell you a little story about a woman named Tyra Hunter. Tyra Hunter was a trans woman. She transitioned when she was 14 years old. At this time, she was 26. She had lived most of her adult life as a trans woman. She was in a car accident. And when the car accident happened, her body was pulled out of a burning wreck. The ambulance showed up. The fire department showed up. They began cutting the clothes off of her body because of the burns. And when they discovered that she had a penis, they stopped medical attention and started telling jokes. It was not until a full 10 to 15 minutes later when a supervisor showed up and said, no, you really need to take this person to the hospital and stop making jokes about the she-male, that she was finally taken to the hospital. Once arrived at the hospital, one doctor refused to work on her. She died. During the court case afterwards, it was testified by experts, had she received proper care right away, she most likely would have been alive, 85 to 90%. They killed her. They murdered her. And this is not uncommon. When I started drag, I was introduced to the safety kit. And the safety kit was, where you thought your Band-Aids were and stuff like that. And one day I opened it up to look what was inside, and there was nothing but a bottle of baby oil in there. I thought, wow, that's kind of strange. And what I found out was that if someone has a heart attack, breaks a leg, falling off a 6-inch heel, needs to be picked up by an ambulance, the first thing they do will grab the bottle of baby oil and pour it all over your face because it's the easiest way to get makeup off. So that you have a chance of having an ambulance take you to the hospital. Excuse me. The average suicide attempt rate in the United States is 4.6%. 4.6% of people have at one time in their life at least attempted suicide. The average suicide attempt rate for gay and lesbians is up to 20%. The average suicide attempt rate for transgender is 41%. And it can get worse. If you're multiracial, it's 54%. If you're poor, it's 53%. If you're unemployed, 50%. If you have an education of only a high school diploma, it's near 50%. If you're homeless, nearly 70% of homeless people have tried to kill themselves. If you are denied access to a physician, nearly 50% of those people try to kill themselves, 60%. If you're rejected by your family and they refuse to speak to you, it's nearly 60%. If you are bullied, if you have violence against you, a full 80% of people who are sexually assaulted in college try to kill themselves afterwards. This is from Toledo, 2 weeks ago. Transgender woman was walking down the street, age 33. 3 young men walked up to her after screaming, "Hey, look, there's a dude in a dress." They began punching her in the face, kicking her, until she dropped to the ground, where they continued to kick and punch her, and then stole her cell phone and walked away. Did not run, walked away. Witnesses saw this, didn't stop it. Luckily, she survived, with her jaw wired shut after 2 cranial surgeries. One person may get convicted. The police officer, or the police captain from that precinct said, when asked, does this happen all the time, said, we're not really sure because not a lot of it gets reported. Transgender people don't tend to trust the police. In the first 4 months of 2014, so not only are we dangerous to ourselves and it's dangerous on the street, but it gets even worse. We didn't think it could, but it can. In the first 4 months, 36 transgender people were shot multiple times. 14 were stabbed multiple times. 11 were beaten to death. 3 were burned. 3 were dismembered and mutilated. 2 were tortured to death. 2 were strangled. And 1 was hanged. And finally, 1 had her throat cut and was simply stoned to death. This is from 16 different countries, but a lot of it's from the United States, Canada, a lot from Brazil. A full 10%, by the way, of those number is trans youth. An 8-year-old was beaten to death by her father for being trans. A 14-year-old was strangled in her own bed and shoved underneath it for being trans. As of right now, this year, 268 people, men, women, were murdered this year. That's an average of 1 person being murdered every 32 hours. And you wonder why people don't want to come out as to who they are. So what can you do? Well, like I said, the Transgender Day of Remembrance is coming up on the 20th. It's a day where we celebrate all those lives that were lost, either through suicide or through murder. It's going to be at the Clifton Civic Center, or Clifton Cartwell Arts Center at about 7 o'clock. There's supposed to be some music, some dancing. There's a reception afterwards. But it's a chance for the community to come together and celebrate the lives that are now gone. You are all welcome. If you would like, instead of that, it would be nice to support several groups. For instance, the It Gets Better Project and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Most transgender people are dead at their own hands, even with that horrific number for murder. It's important to catch them young, to catch them early. That's what the Get Better Project does. Tell them it does get better. GLSEN I was on the board of directors for GLSEN for a while. It's a gay, lesbian, straight education network. They do wonderful, wonderful work here in this area. They teach in elementary and middle school the one thing that would help. Don't bully. It's an anti-bullying campaign aimed at the alternative genders or sexualities, but that's what they're trying to do. Consider HRC for pulling us out of poverty, for giving us equal rights. The Transgender Law Center for helping us do things as simple as get a Social Security card, driver's license. Consider the Heartland Trans Wellness Group, which is right here around the tri-state area. They help a lot of people locally. And right here in this church, in that room, VOG, Variety of Genders, with our own Corey, who runs that. Thank you, Corey. I will tell you, I've been in several support groups. It's the best run group I've ever been in. And there is a reason you will know between the hours of 4:30 and 6 every Sunday, every other Sunday, roughly, I'm sorry, I'm getting the schedule all screwed up, that it says nobody else is allowed to be here. These people are scared. These people are hurting. And they need someplace private to be. Okay, trans etiquette. Really quickly. Treat trans people as you would treat anybody else. Somebody asked me at work after I came out to her, what do you want to be? What is it for you? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want? What do you want? I said, I want to be a great parent. I want to have great friends. I want to do really good at my job. And oh, by the way, I'm trans. I'm just a person. Use the correct name and pronoun. This one's hard. Mom, this one's really hard for you. When you don't use the correct name and pronoun, you're simply saying, I don't care. It hurts. You don't dress like this because you wanted to be called sir at a restaurant. If you make a mistake with a pronoun, just go on. It's okay. We've got thick skins. We can handle it. But recognize that you did it. You might want to say sorry, but don't dwell on it. Don't make a joke out of it. Just go. Don't say, I will never get that pronoun or name right. What you're saying at that point is you simply don't care that my feelings are more important than your feelings, and my struggle with it is more important than your need to be authentically who you are. Don't ever say, you will always be the man or woman to me, no matter how you met them. Because you met them, and you just didn't see all of them. Don't touch the person inappropriately or ask personal questions unless you're invited to do so. That happens a lot. Hey, let me tell you about my genitals. It's awesome. Don't out a trans person. If you see somebody on the street you suspect is trans, great. I see a lot of people on the street that I go, wow, that's an interesting idea in wardrobe. I don't point at that person. I don't tell my friends. It's rude. It's rude for anybody. And it's particularly dangerous in certain situations where the person is somewhat stealthy and you out them in front of people who might not be exactly thrilled for their presence to be there. Don't make assumptions. We're not all liberals. I find that on Facebook. We're not all bisexual. We're not all rich. We're not all poor. We're just like everybody else. We just happen to be a little sliver of the population. And finally, let us go to the bathroom. This is actually one of the biggest things in our community. Where the heck do I go pee? So this is a big one, and actually, this is my last thing. So the Cleveland Plain Dealer up in Cleveland, they're trying to pass an ordinance in which allows transgender people and veterans to use whatever facilities they need to go to the restroom, because sometimes that's where the handicap facilities are. People are against it because they believe that it will let predators and pedophiles into the wrong restrooms. I simply want to pee. I really do. And I'm going to leave you with this. This is a great sign from the University of Bristol. If you're in a public restroom and you think a stranger's gender doesn't match the sign on the door, please follow these steps. Don't worry about it. They know better than you. Thank you. There's my email address. I come here every Sunday. If you want any questions answered, please ask them. If you need to contact me in private, you've got ways of doing that either through Corey or through my email address. And the biggest thing is, what can you do as a community? Keep doing what you're doing here. Thank you very much.